You wake up and before your eyes even fully open, there is that blaring, unforgiving sound of the alarm.
Oh, yeah. The absolute worst way to start.
Right. And instantly, there is this feeling of immense, like suffocating weight pressing down on your
It's
chest.
like you're already exhausted before you even move.
Exactly. You drag yourself out of bed, already feeling like you are running behind in a race you never even signed up for.
Yeah, that automated dread.
You stumble into the kitchen, you pour yourself a sweet, creamy, warm beverage, and just as you lift the mug to take that first comforting sip, a single, dark drop splatters right in the center of your clean clothes.
Of course it does. It always does.
It always does. And then you rush out the door, you hit a seemingly endless tide of glowing red traffic lights, and finally you arrive at your destination already entirely defeated.
Just completely drained.
You slump into your chair, stare blankly ahead, and mutter those familiar words like, why does this always happen to me?
It feels incredibly personal, doesn't it?
Oh, it really does.
Like the surrounding environment has a specific targeted vendetta against you
Yes.
because we're conditioned to view reality as this solid, external, immovable structure.
Right, like it's just a rigid box we live in.
Exactly. We think of ourselves as isolated biological units simply bouncing around inside that structure, just reacting to whatever random chaos comes our way.
Yeah, that is exactly the sensation. It feels like an endless current of resistance, like you are just a perpetual victim of circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And the frustrating part is that you look around and you observe individuals who seemingly, I don't know, glide through existence.
They make it look so effortless.
They really do. They effortlessly attract beneficial circumstances. They radiate joy. Doors just spontaneously open for them.
While the rest of us are struggling.
Right. While the overwhelming majority of us feel like we are constantly, painfully forcing our way through a thick wall of concrete.
Yeah, it's exhausting just thinking about it.
So why is there such a massive disparity in the human experience? To figure this out, we are embarking on a massive exploration today.
A really vital one, yeah.
We are looking at a vast constellation of concepts ranging from the theoretical frameworks of quantum mechanics regarding the observer effect to ancient philosophical texts on universal laws.
All the way to modern cognitive psychology.
Exactly. We were examining the unseen architecture of reality, and we're doing it without relying on any single dogma.
Which is so important, because to truly examine that architecture, we have to completely dismantle our basic assumption about the physical world.
Okay, where do we start with that?
Well, the core premise we must understand is this life is not happening to you. Life is responding to you.
Wait, responding to you.
Yes, the physical world, the environment you perceive as so concrete and indifferent, is actually a highly fluid, extraordinarily sensitive, energetic mirror.
A mirror. Wow.
Yeah, it is continuously reflecting your own internal state back to your physical experience.
Okay, wait, I need to stop you right there. Claiming the world is an energetic mirror sounds, beautiful in a poetic sense.
Sure, it sounds nice.
But from a mechanical standpoint, how does that actually work? Are we saying we aren't passive characters in a pre-written narrative?
That is exactly the assertion. You are the deliberate author of your own existence.
I mean, that's a massive claim.
It is. But to write the story, you cannot just wish for it. You have to understand the fundamental physics of the pen you are holding.
Okay, so what is the pen made of?
We are talking about the mechanics of energy, the universal language of frequency, and the raw, unadulterated power of consciousness.
So if the mission of our discussion today is to figure out how to stop forcing our way through concrete and start actively authoring the life we want, where's the starting line?
Well, you mentioned dismantling our assumptions about the physical world.
Right.
We have to begin at the most fundamental level of matter. If you place everything around you under a theoretical microscope, the chair you are sitting on, the walls of your room, even your own hands, you eventually reach a subatomic threshold where matter actually ceases to be solid.
Ceases to be solid.
Entirely. At its absolute core, everything is composed purely of energy. It is a swirling storm of light particles vibrating at varying frequencies.
So nothing is truly solid. It is just vibrating energy.
Correct. The universe communicates through a singular universal language, which is the language of vibration.
So everything has a frequency.
Everything is emitting a specific resonance. But here is the objective truth that completely changes the paradigm, right? These fundamental particles of light hold no fixed mass and no fixed state until they are measured or watched.
Hold on. Are you saying a physical particle does not have a physical state until it is observed?
Yes. In the absence of an observer, these particles exist purely as a wave of infinite potential.
Like they could be anything.
Exactly. They exist in a state of superposition that could theoretically be anything, located anywhere.
That is wild.
But the very act of observation, the moment a consciousness focuses its attention, causes that wave of potential to collapse into a single defined reality.
Wow.
The observer literally dictates the behavior of the subatomic world.
Okay, this is where my logical brain hits a wall.
I get that. It's a lot.
Because if you are telling me that this heavy wooden desk in front of me is just a swirling cloud of light particles vibrating at a specific frequency,
Which is.
right, and that my observation collapses it into reality, why does it hurt so incredibly much when I stumble in the dark and stub my toe against it?
The classic toe stubbing argument.
Yeah. If it's just a wave of potential, why does the physical pain feel so absolute?
That is the essential hurdle for the logical mind. We have to separate the biological sensation of density from the underlying energetic truth.
Okay, walk me through that.
The density you feel when you stub your toe is not absolute solidity. It is simply a specific, highly dense frequency of energy. The desk colliding with the specific, dense frequency of your physical body.
So it's just frequencies crashing into each other.
Precisely. Your nervous system is designed to translate that energetic collision into an electrical signal, which your brain then interprets as the sensation of pain.
Ah,
It is an evolutionary survival mechanism, you know?
Yeah.
It's not proof of absolute solidity.
So my toe and the desk are just two different energetic frequencies interacting, and my brain is rendering that interaction as physical touch.
Exactly. Now let us connect this mechanism to the broader human experience.
Okay.
If the fleeting observation of a researcher looking at a subatomic particle can dictate the physical behavior of that particle, consider the magnitude of your own prolonged focus.
Oh, wow. So if a glance changes a particle.
Yes. If observation collapses potential into reality, then your persistent expectations, your chronic thought patterns, and your continuous emotional states.
They are collapsing everything else.
Yes, they are the instruments collapsing the vast wave of potential into the specific materialization of your life events. You are the ultimate observer of your own localized reality.
If my persistent focus is constantly collapsing events into existence, that implies I am transmitting like an uninterrupted stream of instructions to the surrounding environment.
You absolutely are, constantly.
But how exactly is that transmission happening? Where is the control panel for this broadcast? Because, I mean, most of the time, I don't feel like I am consciously broadcasting anything.
To understand the mechanism of transmission, you have to view the human biological system not just as a machine that consumes food and produces kinetic energy,
Right.
but as the most sophisticated broadcasting and receiving station in existence. We are constantly emitting electromagnetic signals into the surrounding energetic fabric.
Like a biological cell tower.
A remarkably powerful one, yes.
Yeah.
And this human tower operates via a triad of primary broadcasting stations that collectively dictate the final frequency of the signal you send out.
Okay, let's break those down. What is the first broadcasting station?
The first station is the mind, but more specifically, the subconscious shadow.
The subconscious. Okay.
We tend to operate under the assumption that our conscious mind, the part of us that analyzes data, makes deliberate choices, reads a screen, is the captain of the ship.
Well, yeah, that's what feels like it's in control.
But the conscious mind is merely a solitary spark on the surface. The subconscious mind holds the lion's share of our processing power.
Oh, wow.
And it dictates the vast majority of our automated behaviors.
It is the massive operating system running quietly in the background, executing code without asking for our permission.
A perfect parallel. And to understand the specific code that operating system is running, we have to look back to the dawn of our physical cycle.
You mean when we're young?
Yes. During our earliest eras of life, our minds are entirely absorbent. We do not yet possess the critical analytical faculties required to filter incoming data.
So we just take it all in.
Exactly. We absorb the ambient frequencies of our environment. We absorb the anxieties of our caretakers, the stress of our surroundings, and we form these deep-rooted foundational codes.
What kind of codes are we talking about, specifically?
Codes of unworthiness, codes of chronic inadequacy, foundational codes of fear.
Oh, that's heavy.
It is. If an environment signals to a young mind that it is unsafe or insufficient, the subconscious burns that data into its foundational programming.
And it just stays there.
Yes, and the critical issue is that the subconscious operates in a perpetual state of survival. It is an archaic machine.
Right.
It does not easily distinguish between a historical threat and a current benign reality.
So the subconscious is essentially a projector, overlaying a vast constellation of past negative memories onto the present moment.
Constantly. It confuses the brain's internal neural mirrors.
How so?
When you encounter a modern situation that shares even a fraction of a similarity with a past failure or trauma, your subconscious brain reacts as if that historical threat is occurring right now.
Even if you're perfectly safe.
Exactly. It signals the endocrine system to flood your body with the chemistry of fear, cortisol, adrenaline, and you broadcast a massive, dense signal of anxiety into the environment.
Even if you are just sitting safely in a meeting.
Right. Your body thinks it's life or death.
That perfectly explains the mechanics of overreacting. It is the subconscious shadow hijacking the biological cell tower.
That's a great way to phrase it.
So if the subconscious mind is the first station, what is the second?
The second station is the spoken word. We must entirely strip away the idea that words are merely acoustic vibrations meant for social communication.
Because they're more than that.
Much more. Words carry immense gravitational pull. They are concentrated packets of energetic instruction.
We throw words around so casually, though. I mean, we vent, we complain, we use self-deprecating humor all the time.
Exactly. And mechanically speaking, that is incredibly dangerous to your local reality.
Why is it dangerous?
Because the surrounding universe operates as a neutral mechanical system of response. It does not possess an ego.
Okay.
It does not understand sarcasm. And crucially, it does not process negation. It only registers the raw, heavily charged root of the acoustic command.
Wait, I need a mechanical example of that. Are we saying the universe literally lacks the capacity to understand the word no? Or is this a metaphor for how our own neurology focuses on subjects?
It is actually both. Think of how a search engine works.
Okay.
If you type, "Do not show me pictures of storms," what happens?
The search algorithm focuses on the highly charged keyword storms and delivers exactly what you asked it to avoid.
Exactly. The universal resonance functions similarly. If you repeatedly verbalize, "I am terrified of being exhausted," your conscious mind believes it is expressing a desire for energy.
Right, you're saying you want the opposite.
But the overarching system simply registers the intense frequency of the concept exhausted.
Oh, wow.
You are actively broadcasting the frequency of exhaustion, and the environment matches that resonance, delivering circumstances that drain your energy.
That fundamentally shifts how I view complaining. Complaining is not just venting steam, it is actively placing an order for more of the exact thing you're trying to escape.
It is the ultimate loop of self-sabotage. Every time you speak with emotional weight, you are providing a blueprint for the observer effect to collapse upon.
We have the subconscious operating system projecting past fears and the spoken word acting as a direct acoustic command. What is the third station?
The third station is the magnetic heart. And this is perhaps the most critical and frequently misunderstood component of the human broadcast system.
The heart. Not just as a pump.
Right. The heart is not merely a mechanical pump moving fluid through vessels. It possesses its own highly complex intrinsic neural network. It processes information.
That's fascinating.
More importantly, its magnetic field is magnitudes stronger than the electrical field generated by the brain.
So the heart is generating a massive magnetic field that extends outward, while the brain's electrical field is relatively contained.
Yes. The heart generates a toroidal magnetic field that can actually be measured extending several feet outside the physical body.
Several feet, that's huge.
It is. And this is where the mechanics of manifestation usually break down for people.
What do you mean?
They attempt to alter their reality using only the conscious mind. They sit in a quiet room and think, "I want financial security. I want abundance."
Right, the typical positive thinking approach.
Exactly. But deep in their chest, within that massive magnetic field of the heart, they are harboring the absolute crushing terror of poverty.
They're transmitting a completely contradictory signal.
A severely chaotic signal, yeah. And when the surrounding environment receives a faint intellectual electrical thought of wealth, paired with a massive screaming magnetic frequency of terror,
There's one wins.
it will always default to the overwhelmingly stronger signal. The magnetic frequency of the emotion overrides the electrical frequency of the thought.
Wow.
The environment responds to the resonance of what you truly feel, not the surface-level static of what you merely wish.
Visualizing these three stations functioning simultaneously, I am reflecting on what the average daily internal state looks like.
It's usually a mess, right?
Totally. Think about doing a completely mundane task. You are, say, washing the dishes. The physical environment is entirely safe.
Nothing threatening at all.
Right. But internally, your subconscious is bringing up an old memory of being disrespected. You are having an imaginary, highly charged argument with a former colleague while scrubbing a plate.
We all do it.
Your heart rate elevates, generating that dense magnetic field of anger, and you might even be muttering the argument under your breath.
What is the resulting broadcast in that scenario?
Well, you are standing in a perfectly safe kitchen, but energetically, you are utilizing all three stations: the subconscious memory, the acoustic command of the muttered words, and the intense magnetic field of the heart to broadcast a unified, massive signal of conflict and resentment.
Spot on. And because the universe operates on resonance matching, it will supply you with an external circumstance to validate that internal frequency.
This brings up a massive structural problem, though.
What's that?
If our biological cell towers are so heavily conditioned by our earliest eras to broadcast these outdated, fearful signals, how do we intervene? It feels like the machinery of habit is forged in iron.
It is deeply entrenched, no doubt. But neuroplasticity proves it is not permanent. To rewrite the underlying code, we have to understand the specific anatomy of a habit.
How does that invisible thought become a physical habit?
It is a cascading flow of biological information. A thought is generated in the analytical centers of the brain. If that thought is held, it signals the emotional memory centers to release a corresponding chemical peptide.
Okay.
The body experiences that chemical release as an emotion. When you repeat that loop thought, chemical release, physical emotion countless times, those pathways are literally burned into the foundational stem of the brain.
So it becomes hardwired.
Exactly. The body memorizes the emotional state so well that it becomes your default personality.
It's like a river carving a canyon. The longer the water flows down a specific path, the deeper the groove becomes, until the water has absolutely no choice but to follow that singular route.
That is the exact mechanism. So trying to simply think positive for 5 minutes a day is like trying to redirect a raging river with a single handful of dirt.
It's just going to wash away.
It is mechanically insufficient. You must consciously carve an entirely new canyon. You have to engage in the deliberate art of conscious repetition.
How do we do that practically? Because generic affirmations often feel, hollow.
They feel hollow because they do not bypass the analytical mind. One of the most effective mechanical interventions is the mirror technique.
A newer technique.
Yes. It requires standing before a reflection and looking directly into your own pupils.
I know people who actively avoid looking themselves in the eye. It triggers a profound discomfort.
It triggers discomfort because the eyes are a direct visual pathway to the nervous system. When you hold your own gaze, you begin to bypass the rigid, critical defenses of the conscious mind.
You're kind of hacking the system.
You are forcing the system to confront its own operating code. And while holding that intense gaze, you deliver new acoustic commands. But the structural phrasing is vital. They must be framed in the absolute present tense.
Give me the mechanics of why the tense matters. Why does it have to be present tense?
The subconscious operating system has no concept of the future. It only processes current reality.
Really?
Yes. If your acoustic command is, I will be secure, you are placing the state of security perpetually out of reach in a future timeline.
So it's always tomorrow.
Exactly. The subconscious registers the current state as lacking security. Instead, you must state it as a current, unshakable biological fact. You declare, I am secure, I am whole.
You have to own it right now.
You speak it with the physiological conviction of a reality that has already materialized, thereby forcing the heart to generate a matching magnetic field.
I understand how that deliberate, focused practice starts to carve a new riverbed. But what about the random chaos of a Tuesday afternoon?
The day-to-day noise.
Yeah. What happens when a massive wave of anxiety or a deeply pessimistic thought infiltrates the mind out of nowhere? You're not standing in front of a mirror then.
No, you're not. That is where you must employ the concept of the fleeting moment. You must understand the biological delay in your own system.
The delay between the thought and the chemical reaction.
Exactly. From the fraction of a second that a negative thought registers in your conscious awareness, you have the span of a single fleeting breath before it signals the hypothalamus to release the corresponding stress chemistry into your bloodstream.
Just one breath.
Just one. Once those chemicals are released, your physical state is altered, and the magnetic field of your heart plummets into a dense frequency.
The span of a single breath is a razor-thin margin for error.
It requires intense vigilance. But if you can identify that thought within that microscopic window, you can intercept the signal.
How do you intercept it?
You catch the fearful thought on the inhale, and before the chemical cascade can begin, you deliberately overwrite it on the exhale with its exact positive opposite.
Like flipping a switch.
If the thought is, this endeavor is going to fail, you intercept it and replace it with, I am entirely equipped for this challenge. You cut the wire before the bomb detonates.
Okay, let's assume the listener is actively doing this. They are practicing the mirror technique, they are intercepting the fleeting thoughts, they are tuning their internal broadcast tower to a frequency of clarity and abundance.
That's the ideal state.
But a cell tower doesn't exist in a vacuum. It broadcasts into an environment. What are the structural rules of the environment we are broadcasting into?
This requires transitioning from internal biology to external physics. The surrounding environment operates on precise, unwavering mechanics, often described historically as a grand framework of universal principles.
Let's examine this framework. What is the baseline rule?
The baseline is the principle of divine oneness.
Oneness. What does that mean mechanically?
Mechanically, this asserts that the concept of isolated separation is an optical illusion of the biological senses.
An illusion.
Yes. At the subatomic level, all energy is intricately, irrevocably woven together. There is no isolated thought, no isolated action, and no isolated entity.
So, if the illusion of separation is false, then how I interface with you is literally how I am interfacing with myself?
Exactly. To harbor a focused frequency of malice toward another entity is to release a destructive energetic toxin into your own immediate ecosystem.
Wow.
To harm another is to harm your own structure, because at the level of the unified field, there is no localized other.
That completely re-engineers the concept of conflict. It is self-sabotage on a quantum level.
Truly it is.
What is the next structural rule?
The principle of vibration, which we have been detailing. Everything is in a state of continuous motion, emitting a specific frequency.
Right.
The universal environment acts as a massive resonance chamber, matching emitted frequencies with identical external physical circumstances.
All right, I need to voice the skepticism of the listener right now. This is where this philosophy hits a massive roadblock for modern audiences.
Let's hear it.
I know there is someone listening who is thinking, hold on, I got laid off because of a massive corporate merger, or I was born into a geographical area with immense systemic hardship.
Very real scenarios.
Exactly. Are you telling me my internal vibration manifested a corporate buyout or systemic poverty? How do we reconcile the principle of vibration with structural chaos and external injustice?
That is the most vital question we can ask, and it requires nuance. The principles do not state that you consciously chose the initial conditions of your birth, nor do they claim you control the actions of massive corporate entities.
Okay, good. That's a relief.
We are dealing with an interlocking web of existence. There is your localized frequency, and there is the massive collective frequency of the society or structure you exist within.
So they interact.
Sometimes the sheer momentum of a collective structural frequency, like a massive economic shift, will sweep through your localized reality.
So we are subject to the weather of the collective.
We are. However, the mechanism of your own power lies in the resonance you emit from that point onward. Yes. You did not manifest the corporate merger. But your energetic response to being laid off, whether you broadcast absolute despair and victimhood, or whether you broadcast adaptability and resilience, will absolutely dictate the trajectory of your next chapter.
Ah, I see.
The universe matches your ongoing resonance, not the historical accident.
That distinction is crucial. It removes the victim-blaming aspect while retaining personal agency. Okay, how do we actively move forward once a door has closed?
That brings us to the principle of action. This is the mechanical requirement for physical movement. The universe fundamentally despises stagnation.
Despises it.
Yes, potential energy must be converted into kinetic energy.
This dismantles the myth of sitting on the couch and just vibrating at the frequency of a mansion until someone hands you the keys.
A terrible misinterpretation of the mechanics, truly.
Right, the just think about it and it will appear idea.
Your elevated frequency will absolutely orchestrate synchronicities. It acts as a magnet, aligning you with an unforeseen opportunity, a crucial piece of information, or a vital connection.
But you have to do something with it.
Exactly. The principle of action demands that you physically expend kinetic energy to walk through the door that the magnetic resonance opened. If you remain stagnant, the opportunity decays.
Vibration constructs the bridge, but action is the physical toll required to cross it.
A brilliant analogy. And that toll is directly related to the principle of compensation.
Compensation, like getting paid.
Energetically, yes. The environment operates as a mathematically perfect balancing scale. The magnitude of the abundance, joy, and security you extract from the collective system is perfectly balanced by the magnitude of value, effort, and service you inject into it.
You can't just take.
You cannot endlessly draw power from the grid without generating your own electricity to feed back into it.
It's an energetic transaction. It completely strips away entitlement. What other environmental mirrors do we need to understand?
The principle of correspondence. The historical axiom is, as within, so without. The external physical environment is an uncompromising mirror of your internal psychological landscape.
So if my internal state is a chaotic disaster of unresolved stress, my external life will actively arrange itself into a disaster zone.
Mechanically, yes. If you harbor deep, unexamined anger in your subconscious operating system, the environment will continuously supply you with circumstances that demand an angry response.
More traffic lights, more spilled drinks.
Exactly. You will encounter impossible delays, aggressive individuals, and fractured systems. This happens not because you are cursed by bad luck, but because your internal correspondence is actively demanding a matching external puzzle piece.
So the piece has to start inside.
If you desire peace in your external environment, you must first engineer peace in your internal architecture.
That requires terrifying levels of accountability. Because if you accept that, you can never again blame a bad day entirely on the world.
It's a heavy burden, yeah.
But it also means if you are the root cause, you have the power to be the cure.
It is the ultimate exchange of comfort for power. Next, we must understand the principle of polarity and the principle of rhythm.
Okay, polarity and rhythm.
The universe is constructed on dualism. Every shadow contains the potential for illumination. They are merely opposite ends of a singular spectrum.
And rhythm.
The principle of rhythm governs how we move along that spectrum. Life does not operate in a static, ascending line. It moves in a rhythmic, unceasing pendulum swing.
I have a personal story about fighting this exact principle.
Oh, do share.
A few years ago, I convinced myself that productivity had to be linear. Every day had to be more optimized than the last. I refused to take weekends off. I constantly stimulated my mind, pushing relentlessly into action.
Pushing against the pendulum.
Exactly. And the result wasn't infinite success. My body simply shut down. I developed a strange autoimmune response, profound fatigue. I was forced into absolute immobility for weeks. I fought the rhythm, and the rhythm broke me.
That is a textbook biological response to violating the principle of rhythm.
It was awful.
The pendulum must swing forward into periods of massive expansion, high kinetic energy, and outward creation. But mathematically, it must swing backward into periods of consolidation, silence, and recovery.
You can't just expand forever.
When you attempt to force the pendulum to defy gravity and stay in a perpetual state of expansion, the overarching system intervenes. It forces the backward swing through biological burnout or external structural collapse.
It puts you on your back.
Exactly. True mastery is learning the frictionless art of flowing with the energetic tides, recognizing when it is time to build and when it is time to rest.
So we have this grand framework of universal principles operating around us. But how does our biological entity physically process these massive cosmic laws?
Good question.
We aren't just solid meat. How does the body interface with this energy?
We transition now to the architecture of the body's energy centers. The human biological system is overlaid with a highly complex network of spinning energetic wheels.
Energy centers, like transformers.
Yes. These centers act as biological transformers, stepping down massive universal frequencies into usable currents for the physical organs and the psychological states.
Think of the body as a prism, taking in pure light and splitting it into a spectrum of specific usable colors.
Precisely. Let us examine this spectrum of internal architecture. It begins at the absolute foundation, located at the base of the spine.
The root.
Yes. This foundational center manages our primal survival algorithms, our deepest sense of physical security, and our grounding to the earth.
What happens mechanically when that foundational center is compromised or blocked?
A blockage here, often installed during our earliest eras through environmental instability, creates a complete loss of structural grounding.
So you feel unmoored.
The individual experiences chronic, paralyzing anxiety regarding their physical survival, their financial architecture, and their basic right to exist. They operate in a state of suspended terror, completely disconnected from physical reality.
Like trying to build a skyscraper in a swamp. Moving up from the foundation, where does the energy flow?
It moves into the creative core, situated just below the physical navel. This is the generator for fluid joy, adaptability, and the raw spark of innovation.
And when it's flowing freely,
When the center flows freely, an individual can adapt to changing environments with ease. When it is obstructed, the psychological state becomes rigid, sterile, and entirely devoid of passion.
and the next transformer in the sequence.
Moving upward, we encounter the solar will, located in the gastric region. This is the furnace of personal agency. It is where we forge our individual identity, establish structural boundaries, and biologically digest our complex experiences.
This one is incredibly visceral. The enteric nervous system, the gut brain, is located right there.
It is.
When you are forced into a situation where you fail to assert your boundaries or you anticipate a massive conflict, you physically feel that gut-wrenching sensation. Your stomach ties in knots. That is, the solar will center physically clenching in distress.
Your biology is providing instantaneous telemetry on your energetic state. The physical knot is the energetic blockage made manifest.
Fascinating. Where to next?
Continuing upward, the energy enters the heart's compass, positioned in the center of the chest. This is the crucial bridge mechanism.
Bridge to what?
It connects the dense, lower physical survival centers with the highly refined upper spiritual centers. It governs profound empathy and unconditional acceptance.
And if the bridge is out, what does a blockage here look like?
An obstruction at the heart center creates profound isolation. It manifests not merely as an inability to extend compassion to others, but as a deep, agonizing rejection of the self.
Oh, wow.
The individual operates under the delusion that they are fundamentally, irreparably flawed.
A total collapse of self-worth.
Yes. From the heart, the energy ascends to the throat of truth. This center governs the complex ability to translate an authentic state to the collective.
I have witnessed the physical manifestation of this blockage repeatedly. You see an individual who is trapped in an environment where they are forced to suppress their truth, biting their tongue in a toxic corporate role or a fractured relationship.
And what happens physically?
Suddenly, they develop chronic vocal issues, persistent coughs, or they literally lose their voice. The suppressed acoustic energy has nowhere to flow, so it crystallizes into biological disease.
The physical body will always bear the burden of suppressed energy. It's a perfect example.
Are there more centers?
Finally, the spectrum reaches the apex. First, the eye of intuition, located in the prefrontal cortex region, governing advanced pattern recognition and insight.
Mind's eye.
And then the crown of connection, hovering at the peak of the physical structure, acting as the direct antenna to the unified field.
Okay, so we have a conceptual map of this internal architecture. But if a listener identifies a blockage, say, their solar will is constantly clenched, how do they perform maintenance on these transformers?
Maintenance requires the deliberate application of matching frequencies. Because each center operates at a specific vibrational rate, they are highly responsive to corresponding spectrums of light and acoustic resonance.
Light and sound.
You can utilize the mechanical application of sound-specific vocal tones can literally shatter dense energetic stagnation in a targeted center through acoustic resonance.
That explains why certain types of deep, resonant music or humming can instantly alter your physical state.
Exactly.
But here is a practical dilemma. I have seen individuals perfectly execute the tonal exercises. They visualize the spectrums of light. They attempt to align their internal architecture, but they remain entirely paralyzed in their external lives.
Still stuck.
It is as if they are revving a massive engine, but the vehicle is chained to a concrete wall.
And that chain is almost exclusively forged from historical grievances. This introduces the mechanics of resentment and the absolute necessity of severing invisible ties.
Severing ties.
You can align your internal centers perfectly, but if you are actively tethered to a past trauma, your vital force will be continuously siphoned away.
Let's examine the burden of the unforgiven. Why is harboring resentment such a catastrophic mechanical failure? We usually operate under the delusion that staying angry at someone who wronged us is a form of punishment against them.
That is a fundamental misunderstanding of energy dynamics. Let's abandon the old cliché about drinking poison. A better metaphor is the architecture of a smartphone.
Okay, I like this.
Holding intense resentment is like keeping a massive corrupted application running constantly in the background of your operating system.
Just eating up data.
Exactly. You might be trying to use your phone to navigate a new path, but that corrupted background app is quietly draining your battery to zero, consuming all your processing power, and causing the entire system to overheat and crash.
That is brilliant. The person you are angry at is completely unaffected. They aren't even on the network. But your localized battery is entirely depleted.
Exactly. When you focus intense hatred or resentment toward another entity, you forge a thick, bidirectional, energetic tether, usually connecting right at the solar will.
So there's a literal cord.
Through this tether, you continuously pump your refined, vital energy out to the memory of that person, and in exchange, you download their chaotic, dense frequency directly into your own system.
Wow, that's awful.
You carry their corrupted code into every new environment you enter.
To close that corrupted application, we need a specific uninstallation protocol. How do we sever the tether?
We utilize an ancient, highly specific methodology of reconciliation that acts as a profound energetic intervention. The prerequisite for this protocol is radical accountability.
Radical accountability.
You must temporarily suspend the narrative of victimhood and accept that, on some level of the interlocking web, your frequency participated in the dynamic.
Taking responsibility for the resonance that attracted the conflict. That is an incredibly heavy lift for the ego.
It is the hardest part.
What is the actual protocol?
It requires silently directing 4 highly concentrated intentions toward the memory of the event or the entity involved. First, you broadcast a frequency of unconditional love.
Love. For someone who wronged you.
Not romantic attachment, but a profound acknowledgement of their underlying energetic nature.
Okay.
Second, you transmit a plea for absolution. You ask the unified field to forgive your own blind spots that co-created the chaotic exchange.
Owning your part.
Third, you issue absolute forgiveness to the opposing entity, completely releasing them from your localized judgment.
Letting them go.
Finally, you broadcast intense gratitude for the structural stress test. You thank the experience for forcing you to identify your boundaries and fortify your own architecture.
Love, absolution, forgiveness, gratitude. Those 4 frequencies act as the uninstallation code for the corrupted background app.
They do.
But what if the tether is so deeply entrenched that words aren't enough?
Yeah.
What if you feel a physical, visceral drag from a past event?
When the tether has crystallized into physical sensation, you must employ a direct, visual, energetic intervention, the cord-cutting mechanic.
Cord cutting, how does that work?
I instruct the listener to close their eyes and isolate the specific memory draining their battery. Visualize the entity standing before you. Now, shift your focus downward and visually identify the dense, pulsing tether connecting your solar center to theirs.
See the cord?
Observe your vital force leaking through that conduit.
Just visualizing it, you can feel the mechanical drag of the connection.
Now, in your mind's eye, generate a tool of pure, concentrated light, a high-frequency laser, or a brilliant blade. Grasp that instrument and with absolute, uncompromising intent, sever the tether.
Got it completely.
Watch the connection snap. Observe their end of the conduit disintegrate into the surrounding environment. But most importantly, watch your end of the tether recoil rapidly back into your own architecture.
Coming back to you.
Watch your stolen vital force re-enter your solar center, illuminating it with immense power. You have reclaimed your generated electricity.
Reclaiming the stolen electricity. That is a profound structural shift. Okay, so we have closed the background apps, we have severed the tethers, we have aligned the internal transformers. We're currently sitting in a highly optimized, fully charged, energetic state.
Ready to go.
The challenge now is maintenance. The external environment is chaotic and noisy. How do we protect this optimized state from decaying?
Maintenance requires mastery over 2 specific biological inputs, the mechanical intake of vital force and the deliberate exploitation of the brain's transitional states. We must master diaphragmatic breath, and we must hijack the twilight of consciousness.
Let's analyze the breath first. It is an automated biological function. Why does it require mastery?
Because the overwhelming majority of modern humans have corrupted the automated function.
We forgot how to breathe.
Basically, yes. As we accumulate environmental stress, our breathing apparatus physically alters its mechanics. We cease drawing oxygen deep into the foundation of the lungs. Instead, we transition to shallow, rapid, clavicular breathing, taking tiny sips of air into the upper chest.
And what does that mechanical shift do to the operating system?
Chest breathing is the biological trigger for the sympathetic nervous system. It continuously signals the brain that the organism is under immediate physical threat.
So you're always in panic mode.
You could be sitting in a perfectly climate-controlled room looking at a glowing screen, But your breathing mechanics are telling your endocrine system that you are being hunted by a predator.
Wow.
You remain locked in a perpetual, exhausting state of fight or flight, which heavily densifies your magnetic field.
We are chemically poisoning our own environment just by breathing incorrectly. How do we recalibrate the mechanism?
We must intentionally engage the vagus nerve through deep foundational breathing. You must instruct the biological machine to draw the universal vital force deep down, physically expanding the gastric region on the intake, ensuring the energy reaches the root transformer.
Belly breathing.
On the exhale, you forcibly expel the accumulated physical and emotional stagnation. This mechanical action stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, instantly signaling absolute safety to the brain,
Shutting off the panic alarm.
halting the release of stress chemistry and allowing your internal transformers to spin without friction.
So breath is the mechanical stabilizer. What did you mean by hijacking the twilight of consciousness? This sounds like a biological loophole.
It is the ultimate backdoor into the subconscious operating system. We have to analyze the electrical frequencies of the brain.
Okay, brainwaves.
During standard waking hours, your brain operates in a highly active beta wave frequency. In this state, the conscious analytical mind is fully engaged. It acts as a highly aggressive firewall, analyzing, doubting, and rejecting any incoming data that contradicts the current reality.
So if I sit at my desk in the middle of the day in a beta wave state and try to program the belief I am generating massive wealth, my analytical firewall instantly blocks it, saying, look at your bank account. That is mathematically false.
Exactly. The firewall rejects the code. But there is a biological loophole in the hypnagogic state, or the twilight of consciousness.
When does that happen?
This is the microscopic, highly fluid threshold hovering precisely between alert wakefulness and deep slumber. It occurs naturally just as you are drifting off to sleep, and again as you are surfacing into wakefulness.
What happens to the firewall in that specific threshold?
The brain transitions into theta wave frequencies. In this precise state, the aggressive analytical firewall completely powers down, but the subconscious operating system, the fertile soil of your programming, remains wide open and receptive.
It's totally vulnerable.
Whatever specific imagery, acoustic commands, and intense emotional resonance you hold in your mind during that brief twilight window is downloaded directly, without any analytical resistance, into the foundational code of your reality.
This is a terrifying realization when you consider how most people fall asleep. They lie in bed in the twilight state, running a mental review of everything that went wrong that day, rehearsing imaginary conflicts for tomorrow, and generating a massive magnetic field of anxiety.
It's so common.
They're using the back door to install viruses into their own operating system.
And their subconscious will spend the next 8 hours crystallizing those viruses into their default personality, guaranteeing that their physical reality the next day matches the frequency of anxiety.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
However, if you deliberately hijack that twilight state, if you enter that threshold holding the vivid, high-definition imagery and the intense, swelling emotion of your ultimate desired reality, you are literally reprogramming the universal response mechanism to deliver that outcome.
I have actually used this exact biological loophole. A few years ago, I was facing a terrifying public speaking engagement. I knew my beta wave brain was terrified.
So what did you do?
So for weeks, exclusively during that tiny twilight window before sleep, I would vividly hallucinate the feeling of walking off the stage to thunderous applause. I focused entirely on the physiological relief and joy of having crushed it.
And the result?
And when the actual event arrived, my nervous system didn't panic. It acted as if it had already survived and succeeded at the event 100 times.
You successfully bypassed the firewall and provided the subconscious with an undeniable blueprint of success, which perfectly transitions us to the final phase.
The final phase.
We have cleared the corrupted background apps, we have aligned the internal architecture, we are stabilizing the system with breath, and we are utilizing the twilight backdoor. We have a pristine mechanism.
So how do we deliberately construct the external environment? What is the master blueprint for creation?
To execute the blueprint, we first have to map your current coordinates onto the universal narrative structure.
The mythic journey.
Yes. For a massive portion of your life, you have been confined to the ordinary world. This is the baseline state of unconscious existence. It is the world where the environment dictates your state, the world of the dense concrete wall and the heavy resistance.
The struggle.
But by simply engaging with this structural analysis, you have crossed a threshold. You've answered a massive internal call to action.
And leaving the ordinary world forces us to encounter the shadows.
You have navigated the internal cavern. You have confronted the foundational codes of unworthiness, the corrupted background apps, and the mechanical failures of your own system.
Right.
Having survived that analysis, you are now extracting the ultimate reward, the undeniable mechanical proof of your own creative magnitude. You are no longer a passive variable in the equation. You are the mathematician.
So holding the chalk, how do we write the new equation? What are the specific actionable steps of this blueprint?
The first absolute requirement of the blueprint is the uncompromising clarity of intention.
Clarity.
The universal environment is a precision mechanism. It cannot process vague, nebulous data. You cannot broadcast a generic desire like I want a better reality or I want to be joyful. Those are formless clouds of thought.
It is like entering a set of coordinates into a GPS that just says somewhere nice.
Yeah.
The navigation system will simply spin in circles.
A flawless comparison. You must define the exact crystalline architecture of your intention. What are the specific metrics of your joy? What precise environment are you operating in? What exact value are you exchanging with the collective? You must draft the blueprint with razor-sharp, absolute clarity.
Okay, the coordinates are locked in. What is the next phase of the execution?
Phase 2 is the total immersion of the biological senses. The concept of visualization has been critically watered down in modern culture.
People just imagine a picture.
People assume visualization means looking at a flat, two-dimensional image in their mind, like staring at a screen. That generates almost zero magnetic resonance.
So how do we generate the necessary magnetic field to collapse the wave of potential?
You must project your consciousness inside the geometry of the intention. If your crystalline goal is to command a specific leadership role, you do not just picture the corner office.
You have to feel it.
You close your eyes and you physically feel the dense weight of the chair beneath you. You smell the specific scent of the circulated air in that environment. You hear the acoustic signature of your colleagues asking for your direction.
Getting all the senses involved.
And most critically, you force your cardiac center to generate the massive, overwhelming magnetic field of profound gratitude, immense relief, and absolute certainty that the reality is already yours.
You are providing the subconscious operating system with the exact high-definition sensory data of the future encoded in the present tense.
You are instructing the system. And that instruction leads directly to the final and undoubtedly most difficult phase of the creation blueprint, the principle of as if.
This is the ultimate behavioral stress test. It is one thing to sit in a quiet room and generate a magnetic field. It is an entirely different challenge to maintain that field when you walk out your front door into the chaotic noise of the current physical environment. How do we apply as if mechanically?
The principle of as if requires absolute behavioral alignment. You must walk through the physical environment, interface with the collective, and make structural decisions as though your calculated reality has already materialized.
Wow, that's hard.
The fatal error most people make is waiting for the external environment to provide evidence before they alter their internal frequency,
They say, show me the wealth, and then I will feel secure.
which violates the fundamental physics of the mirror. The mirror cannot smile until you smile first. You must alter your internal frequency to cause the external evidence to materialize.
So if my blueprint is to build a massive, innovative enterprise, but currently my bank account is near zero, I cannot walk into a meeting with my shoulders hunched, using timid acoustic commands and making decisions based on absolute scarcity.
Right, because that contradicts everything.
Because that physical behavior is broadcasting a massive frequency of failure, which instantly cancels out all my internal visualizations.
Your biology and your behavior must become a unified broadcast. If you intend to be an individual of massive influence tomorrow, you must adopt the physical posture of an influential individual today.
Fake it till you make it, but energetically.
You must issue acoustic commands with absolute authority today. When your internal magnetic resonance and your external kinetic actions form a perfectly unified frequency, the surrounding environment has no mathematical choice but to collapse the wave of infinite potential into the exact physical matching experience.
This requires an unbelievable level of discipline. It means constantly auditing your posture, your words, your heart rate, and ensuring every single output is aligned with the destination, regardless of what the current environment looks like.
It is the discipline of a master architect.
Let us pull back and look at the macroscopic view of everything we've unpacked in this exploration.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. When we synthesize the mechanics of the observer effect, the massive broadcasting power of the subconscious and the magnetic heart, the complex architecture of our internal transformers, and the uncompromising physical laws of resonance and correspondence,
It paints quite a picture.
it reveals a truly staggering reality regarding the human biological unit. We are not fragile, random accidents being tossed around by an indifferent, chaotic void.
Not at all.
We are highly concentrated, unimaginably powerful nodes of universal energy. We possess the mechanical ability to literally warp and shape the localized fabric of reality through the disciplined application of our focus, our magnetic emotion, and our kinetic action.
Beautifully said.
The concrete wall isn't stopping us. We are the ones who poured the cement, and we are the ones who can dissolve it.
It is a realization that grants immense, almost terrifying power and demands equally immense accountability. It completely re-engineers how you perceive every single data point in your environment.
Which brings us to a final, entirely new concept we must consider before we conclude. We have spent this entire time analyzing your localized, individual frequency and how it shapes your immediate reality.
Right, the individual node.
But what happens when millions of these biological broadcasting towers are clustered closely together?
You are referring to the phenomenon of collective resonance.
Exactly. Ponder this. What is the overarching energetic frequency of the physical city you currently reside in?
Oh, that's a brilliant question.
Is it a chaotic, dense frequency of survival and competition? Or is it a high, fluid frequency of innovation and connection? And the critical question is the massive collective magnetic field of your geographical location quietly overriding your localized broadcast?
Are you fighting a current you can't even see?
Exactly. Are you fighting a structural current you aren't even aware of?
An incredible metric to analyze. It forces you to audit not just your internal state, but the energetic ecosystem you choose to plug your power into.
Exactly. Something to deeply analyze the next time you walk down a crowded street. Remember, the overarching system is not a predetermined script you are forced to blindly execute. The architecture is entirely fluid. The pen is firmly in your hand, your internal frequency is the ink, and the next sequence of reality is entirely yours to calculate and construct.
Yeah, sad.
Take a massive vagus nerve activating deep breath. Clear your background applications and go engineer something magnificent.